Welcome to today's senior speech. I ask you please silence your cell phones before the event. Today's speakers. Our first speaker today is Sophia Walker.
I'm going to introduce myself with some random facts about me. The first fact being that I'm very indecisive. As a result of this flaw, I was unable to come to the decision of who I wanted to introduce me today. But as I realized that there is nobody that knows me better than myself. So please enjoy my fun facts. I had 3 pet rats growing up. The most recent rat died from my friend wheelbarrowing her legs, causing her to get paralyzed from the waist down. So she had to pull herself around with her front paws. Rip Nala. I still sleep with a stuffed animal. Her name is Fluffy Puffy, named after that one SpongeBob episode where SpongeBob buys a cute new friend for Gary, but at night while SpongeBob's Gary. Good episode. I cut all my hair off by myself on my 3rd birthday because I was jealous that my sister was old enough to use safety scissors, but I wasn't. My mom cried for days after that because I was practically bald. I used to sell my old stuff online and I made over $1,000, including some of my sister's stuff, but don't tell her. Sophomore year during French class, I threw up in my mask in the hallway while running to the bathroom. I used to film makeup videos in my room to post on YouTube, and I even posted some of them, but they've all been deleted, so don't even try to find them after my speech. I still barely know how to read a clock, especially the ones with Roman numerals, and finally, I'm a really good liar. That brings us to the topic of my senior speech today. When I was younger, I took my skill of lying to an extreme and lied any chance I could get. The ones I will reveal to you all and my parents today are ones from when I was younger that have stuck with me. Sadly, I'm unable to confess all of my juicy lies today because not only would we be here for days, but I'd get in too much trouble. My first story is set in Scottsdale, Arizona, where my family and I go each summer and see my cousins. The hotel we go to each year has a daycare called Kids Club, where parents can send their kids if they've had enough of them. So my cousins and I were sent there pretty often. One summer, when I was 6 years old, our parents dropped us off at Kids Club at nighttime. When we walked in, the place was almost empty and only had a few other people in there as well. About an hour into the night, I saw a great opportunity. There was a huge chalkboard with a beautiful drawing of Minnie Mouse sketched in an insane amount of detail. I knew whoever drew this must have really spent their time on it. After seeing this drawing, I was inspired and I wanted to test out my artistic abilities. I'm not sure if it was because it was dark out or the fact that I was basically all alone, but I was feeling evil that night. I grabbed the chalk and I began my creation. Minnie Mouse was about to turn into murderous Minnie Mouse. I added a bite taken out of her ear, X's over her eyes, sharp teeth, and a knife in her hand. To top it all off, I took the red chalk and mixed it with some water, and then I put it all over her to look like blood. Minnie looked awesome. I was feeling so proud of my art that I went to bring my sister and my cousins out to see my work and critique it. They loved it. When our moms came to pick us all up, the staff immediately showed them the artwork. My mom and aunt were very disturbed, and that's when we were asked the question, who did this? When I heard this question, I knew I was not about to confess, so I confidently blamed my sister and my cousin. Clearly, they denied and ratted me out, but successfully, I stuck with my lie and they all believed me. I remember distinctly right after, my sister said that I was the one who drew the horrifying murder scene. My aunt said, "Sweet Sophia would never do such a thing. She doesn't have a single evil bone in her body." And all I have to say is that she was definitely wrong. All of the years leading up to about 10 years old are prime times to cause trouble and test out your lying abilities. That is because you're at the age where if you can get in trouble, you can get out of it by just saying you didn't know. And that's exactly what I did in 3rd grade. I was with my best friend Alex, her twin brother, and her mom at the FedEx store. And that's when I stumbled upon a smiley face lanyard laying on the ground. I showed it off to Alex and her brother, and they wanted one so bad. They walked laps around the store until they spotted the yellow lanyard in its packaging. They were jealous that I found the lanyard on the ground and they had to pay for it. That was until they came up with a plan. They wanted to steal these valuable items. I hyped them up and told them they could probably get away with it. I watched as they ran back and forth into the car, dropping one item off after the next. Gum, a million lanyards, birthday cards. After they were satisfied with their collection, they had successfully robbed FedEx and were ready to head on home. About a week later, we were busted. Alex's mom had found the gum and the birthday cards under her bed, and she knew she didn't buy them for her. I was told that Alex and her brother also said that I stole the gum and the lanyard and the birthday cards. I obviously stuck to my story, and once again, everyone believed me. The real story is slightly different. I did not magically find this lanyard on the ground. I took it out of its packaging and planted it on the ground to look like I randomly stumbled across it. So once again, I was the ringleader. I hadn't told anybody the story until just now, but don't worry, my path to becoming a kleptomaniac ended that day when we had to apologize to the FedEx worker while they played back the security footage in front of us. I will conclude my speech with the story of my most expensive lie yet. One time, I woke up in the middle of the night with severe stomach pain. I woke up my mom and we stayed awake for hours, so confused, until we came to the most obvious conclusion. My appendix is bursting. We went to the ER and the doctors did an x-ray on my stomach, took my blood and did so many tests. Hours later, the doctor, with a suspicious look on her face, came into the room with my results. She placed before me a horrifying x-ray of my stomach. And for all I knew, that sure looked like appendicitis, and my appendix was going down. My mom and I were so concerned, literally on the edges of our seats, waiting for my diagnosis. And that's when the doctor revealed my shocking illness. I had a bad case of constipation. You are probably thinking this is just another story from when I was younger, but this happened to me last year. I had no clue how I was about to tell my dad that the $2,000 hospital bill he was just charged was for constipation. So I did the most obvious thing I could do. I lied. Surprise, Dad, my appendix was not bursting and it was not an extreme IBS flare-up. I'm sorry that you paid $2,000 just for me to be told that I was constipated. I used to believe that no matter the situation, I was always better off with a really good lie. But as I've gotten older, I realized that lying can be depleting and it can heavily diminish trust between not only human beings, but trust within yourself. Not only do I have collegiate to thank for teaching me the importance of telling the truth, but I also have to thank my friends and family for putting up with my lies for so many years. If I could go back in time and tell my younger self anything, I would have to inform her that if she stops lying now, then she would have saved herself from having to confess some of her lies to the whole school and her family during her senior speech. Thank you all.
Our second speaker today is Nick Good. Nick will be introduced by his manager, Ethan Hans.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Ethan Hans. I was the assistant general manager at Renaissance Fun Park, located in Middletown before it permanently closed down. There I met Nick. And if you don't know Nick, he's one of the funniest people I've ever met. I wish I got the opportunity to work with Nick a little bit longer. We only worked together for around 2 months or so, but he is, like I said, one of the funniest people I've ever met. So we were required to wear name tags on our lanyards for our uniform. And this dude obviously is 6'9". So he got asked a whole bunch of times, how tall are you during each shift? Well, Nick had the brilliant idea. He came in one day, switched up his name tag from Nick to Nick 6'9". He put that on his name tag in parentheses, 6'9". And I was like, wow, that's absolutely brilliant. You'll never be asked again how tall you are. And believe it or not, he would still be asked. He would literally look down at his lanyard and he'd be like, dude, come on, I'm 6'9". You got it right here. But yeah, I've taken up enough of your all's time. I'll let Nick introduce himself and his speech, okay?
Known as 6'9" the whole time I was there. The most common thing someone asks me is, how tall am I? If you're past the height of 6 feet, then you've heard it too. It is uncommon not to hear someone ask how tall you are, and it makes strangers very predictable. If you have ever commented on someone's height thinking you did it creatively, it's more than likely 3 people had already said it an hour before you did. People also like to come up and size themselves next to me when they think I don't see them, but trust me, it is very noticeable. I have also been asked weird questions about other tall people. For example, I have been asked multiple times how big Shaq's feet are just because I'm tall and they assume I know a lot about basketball. I know enough about basketball to understand what's going on in a conversation, but I only started paying attention to any sport sophomore year. So I'm not going to know that Shaq wears a size 23 shoe off the top of my head. I find it funny how strangers will open up to taller people more than someone of the average height and trust you more with things that should be very important. For example, at a concert, a very drunk man trusted my 6'7", 350-pound cousin and I with the task of watching his wife and making sure no one messes with her while he went and got more beer. Now, given how intoxicated he was, I'm not surprised he was willing to trust strangers with watching his wife. But I wouldn't be telling the story if it didn't happen again, the same night at the same concert. But instead of someone's wife, it was a dad and his 2 sons. Now, I'm very positive this man was not intoxicated in any way, so it was very strange for a dad to ask me to watch his sons in a very crowded pit of people. It did not take me long to lose those kids, so moral of this... So moral of the story, don't trust random people with your kids, even if that person is tall. Those kids were fine. They were in a mosh pit. While I may seem very annoyed by some of the situations I've been put in because of my height, I have no problems with them. And I enjoy some of those interactions, but they can get pretty awkward at times. The question, how tall are you, is a very boring question and will only lead to more questions like, how tall are your parents? Do you have any siblings? Are they tall? I don't mind small talk, but this conversation is very, very common and will lead to people start talking about their great granddaddy and how he was taller than me, built like a freight train, and could dominate anyone on the football team. I've had those same conversations so many times that I can usually talk for them. Instead of having the same boring conversation over and over, I think there are 2 very appropriate ways to say how someone is tall. The first way is to say, wow, you're tall, and then just walk away. This method is a very fast and effective way to get that topic off your mind while not bothering or interrupting the tall person in question. You would think this is a very common thing to happen, but I assure you it's not, and I wish it would happen more. The second way is to be funny or random on how you say that someone is tall. I've not found a funny way to ask, and I've asked all the tall people I know the most creative way they've been approached about their height, and they all gave me the same response. There hasn't been one. You might be thinking, why am I telling you to be funny and creative when there hasn't been anyone else to do it? Well, somewhere out there, there's a man in Cracker Barrel that can bless us with his wisdom and charm and finally give us the answer. Really, the best thing to do is just be nice and not super boring. Now that I have given my 2 cents on how to comment on being tall, I need to focus on the tall people themselves. I have a lot of patience when it comes to people remarking, but some of you don't. Find a faster, easier way to answer the question. Some of the ways you thought of are so awful they need to be brought up. Having a business card with the list that says something along the lines of, yes, I'm tall, I'm 6'9", no, I don't play basketball, is one of the worst possible answers to the question. To me, the card is the equivalent of a minion meme on Facebook. They aren't funny and they shouldn't be shared with anyone. The only thing worse than the card is a t-shirt saying, yes, I'm tall. Wearing the shirt means you think you're more special than you actually are. The only reasonable way to respond to people is to talk to them instead of making yourself look dumb. I understand that the people that decide to use these weird ways are a very small fraction of tall people, but they still exist. If there's a better way than talking to people and I'm wrong, I desperately want to know, but I have a lot of confidence that I'm right. As a tall person, you'll never feel tall even though you're told every day. When I think of my parents, my family, and others that are important in my life, I always see them as taller than me. And I'd like to think that has to do with the amount of respect I have for those that I surround myself with. I never focus on how tall someone is because I always feel eye to eye with others. If there is anything to take away from what I'm telling you, it's to treat others with respect, even if you've never talked to this person before. Finally, I would like to thank the collegiate community for all the great years and for even getting me to play basketball, although I was not the Shaquille O'Neal you wanted me to be. Thank you for listening.
Our third speaker today is Woodford Ragland. Woodford will be introduced by his grandfather, Ted Custer.
Grandsons are good for something. Trade fled to the Bengals. What happened to our Bengals? 2-2, not bad. Okay. I got it. Well, glad to be here, not in this shape, waiting on a hip replacement. So if y'all find an extra hip around here, let me know because I'm ready for it. The opportunity was given to me for this fine job, and my name, I'm Theodore Roosevelt Custer. Not again came as the president, but my grandfather was very fond of him. Custer's not Custer's last stand, so Woodford didn't. So Woodford is Woodford Custer Ragland. Now the Woodford comes in from another area, but Woodford's not all has not had that name all the time. When he's a youngster, I mean, y'all call him Woody probably, but I call him Scooch. Now the words, what do you mean by Scooch? Well, other kids could crawl. What crawl? So he would always scoot, get scoot. I'd say, hey, Scooch, where you going? Hey, so it stuck with him. So I want us all together to say, hey, Scooch. Hey, Scooch. Now, the other thing, Woodford's into all kinds of things, tries to do everything. And he wanted me to write this speech to introduce him. And I started with it and I just couldn't stop. And I said, here's the notes and here's notes. There's more notes. There's more notes. Oh, here it is. It says, shut up, Granddaddy. He calls me boy. Okay. That was it. No, but I'm very fond and very proud of my grandson, Woodford. I have, and his basketball ability. He likes his classes. He likes his music. He likes his girls. But I want you all, and I'm going to put this up in front for you, this picture of your basketball player that sits in our home. So when you all come up later, look around, I want you looking too. And let's get Scooch in there and win a game this year. I hope we have a good season. I'm looking forward to the games. Lacrosse was interesting last year. Quick recall is quick and slow sometimes. And then he's got his good friend always comes to visit us, and all the good boys from here at collegiate that I like and fun. They're not very good farm boys, but they're okay. So Woodford, take it easy.
Good morning, guys. I was not expecting that, but I can't think of a person to introduce me to my grandfather. Before I begin, I'd like to make an announcement. The orchestra is still looking for bagpipes. And anyone who finds them, the reward will be a performance by Mr. Sutherland. So just keep that in mind. Contrary to what most people will tell you, I actually really hate talking about myself. Instead, I like to focus on someone else today. There's Jeremy. Jeremy's right there. Today, I'll be talking about the most exciting, confusing, interesting, but ultimately rewarding experience of my life so far, living with Jeremy Yee. For those of you who haven't met Jeremy yet, Jeremy is an accomplished pianist. He's an NBA super fan. He's the fastest kid at Collegiate when tilapia is for lunch. And he's my best friend. So I met Jeremy during his first day at Collegiate in 8th grade, and we immediately bonded over our mutual love for sports and music. Because of this, when I heard that Jeremy was looking for a new family to live with sophomore year, I jumped at the opportunity. Sadly, Jeremy joined us at probably the worst possible time in all of recorded history, that being July of 2020. So COVID-19 was still spreading everywhere. We all know vaccines, masks, we had to wear them all the time. And worst of all, though, I had to listen to the song Savage Love every time I turned on the radio. So the world, and Jason Derulo's music had reached an all-time low. But Jeremy and I didn't let the horrible TikTok music or the pandemic keep us from having a good time. A month into Jeremy's stay with our family, I decided to teach him how to ride a Bird, one of the many electric scooters around town. Now, let me give you all some advice. If you want to teach someone how to ride an electric scooter, do not take them to Bardstown Road. Riding a scooter is hard enough without having to dodge trash cans, incoming traffic, and a lot of creepy old men. With that disclaimer, here's what happened. We rented 2 scooters, and I showed Jeremy the basics. After about 10 minutes, Jeremy was able to stand on the scooter without falling, so I assumed he was ready to travel at high speeds through a crowded urban area. I crossed the street and told Jeremy to follow close behind. Little did I know that a car was coming around the corner as I was crossing the street. Before I had time to tell Jeremy to stop, the car and my soon-to-be ex-international student were set to collide. The car tried to slow down, but it was too late. The car hit Jeremy's scooter, and I looked behind me just in time to see him take flight. I felt like, if any of you all have ever seen like the movie Titanic, I kind of felt like Rose when she's like watching Jack sink into the ocean. But Jack was Jeremy and the ocean was Grinstead Avenue. After what seemed like an eternity, Jeremy landed on the hood of the car with a loud thump. Thankfully, Jeremy immediately jumped off the car and ran away uninjured. The same could not be said for the scooter. The entire upper half of the scooter had been decapitated from the bottom and was only held together by a couple wires. We hid the evidence of our crime in the bushes behind the speedway. We never heard about the scooter again. Sorry, Mom and Dad, I've never told you that we were involved in a scooter hit and run. After such a traumatizing beginning to our time together, things could really only get better from there. I quickly learned that Jeremy had a passion for crustaceans, and in particular, crabs. One day, a box arrived at our house from Singapore addressed to Jeremy. I assumed that the box was another shipment from his mother with like maybe new clothes, so I brought it up to his room. Jeremy opened the box in front of me, and I was shocked to see a colony of live hermit crabs inside of the box. How'd you find these crabs, Jeremy? I asked. Oh, I just bought them from a dealer overseas, he replied. Do you need like a permit or anything to ship them? Nope, just bought them. The next morning, I typed into Google, is it legal to import hermit crabs into the US without a permit? Here's the short answer, no. For months, Jeremy continued to receive shipments of crabs until we had about 12 illegally imported crustaceans living in the guest bedroom. At this point, Jeremy faced a fine of up to $60,000 from the Department of Agriculture if his stash was discovered. I formulated a plan in case the USDA ever arrived at the house. Before the crabs could be discovered, I would flush Groucho, Claude, Shelley, Kermit, Sandy, Chuck, Lenny, Curly, Mo, Mr. Krabs, Michelangelo, and Leonardo da Vinci down the toilet. Surprisingly, we once again escaped criminal prosecution. One of my other favorite Jeremy memories comes from sophomore year, being our first prom. Jeremy had never been to a school dance before, so I spent the 3 nights leading up to prom teaching Jeremy some of the school dance classics. We worked our way through the Cha-Cha Slide, the Cupid Shuffle, Cotton Eye Joe, and the always popular Crank That Soldier Boy. I even taught Jeremy how to Dougie. Unfortunately, our promposals did not go as smoothly. I went to Paul's Fruit Market about 2 weeks before prom and bought 2 bouquets of flowers for each of us to give to our respective dates. At some point, there must have been some miscommunication because Jeremy went to the school the next day and gave both bouquets to the girl he was asking to prom. I'm really happy that Gillen said yes, but anyway, if a girl gets 2 bouquets from Jeremy this year, would you mind returning one of them to me? Anyway, I can't believe we're both seniors now, Jeremy. It seems like yesterday that we were sitting in Mr. Haas's study hall talking about Stephen Curry and Beethoven. Now we're applying to college, and there are not many things in this world that I know for sure certain, but Jeremy has taught me one thing. It's important for everyone to have a person that they can always turn to for support and advice, because it's so easy to feel alone in the world, but having that one person who makes you feel alive makes everything better. If I can give you all one piece of advice, I would tell you to find that person or people. They could be anywhere. They could be here at church, at school. I do go to church. Or a random stranger you meet on the street. They will accept you for who you are and stand by you throughout the good and the bad. And when you find them, never let them go. Jeremy, thank you for being that person for me. No matter how many times I mess up or commit misdemeanors with you, I know that you'll always have my back. They say that friends are the family you choose, and I choose you 1,000 times. Thank you.
Could I have one more round of applause for all the speakers today? Everyone is dismissed.